Did you freeze again?
Oh, hey, all right. Hopefully my computer doesn't get all screwed up again like last night. It is raining here. Evan, how are you tonight?
I'm doing good.
It did it
Definitely
again.
glad.
Evan, you might as well just stay on. I already called you up.
Right. So, definitely welcome back to the Lake House, everybody, as we're here to
Dang,
talk sports.
what the fuck is going on?
Talk
Hey,
by the
anyway, we're
lake.
talking. We're Evan. I have no idea. You see it firsthand. You're live tonight with us, not watching from YouTube. You see my computer is fucking whack tonight again. I don't know what happened. I couldn't talk during the whole thing when it was frozen. It
That's
muted
crazy.
on my screen, so I don't know
Yeah.
what was going on. Anyway, we are talking Browns tonight, and will they end up in Vegas on February 11th? We have a great crew with us tonight, Evan. And I think you agree with that one, right?
Absolutely. Some familiar faces and a special guest. We're trying to make everybody here a special guest and a regular face here as we talk sports at the Lake House.
I like it.
Um,
I just realized, like, I tried to share this with the Lake House, and it's not coming up on the X. I don't know. I don't know if I'm not logged in or not don't have access to it anymore. Not sure.
it
But
is
anyway,
fine. I will definitely share it. But yeah, so we're going to do a quick recap today of all things that happened in the off season. I know we're late. A lot of us have jobs, a lot of things to cover tonight. Um, we're going to talk some of the offseason moves, the preseason cuts, the first preseason Hall of Fame game, Joe Thomas being enshrined, what he means to us Cleveland fans, some Cleveland predictions that I got at the Hall of Fame game from fans. But nonetheless, let's bring in our first guest, and we're going to go here with John. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me
usual
back.
suspect. I love
Appreciate
it.
it.
Welcome, welcome. Glad to have you back. We're going to go to our next guest, Tyler Johnson. How we doing, man?
Doing good. Thank you guys for having me.
No problems. It's always great to have Browns fans all in one place where we can talk shit and have fun. And our last guest, and last but not least, Mike Lucas, a familiar face for a lot of Cleveland fans. How we doing, the gang?
Doing good, man. Glad to be on here for the first time, talking some Browns and some other sports wherever we go. So excited to be on, and thanks for having me.
Definitely, definitely. So, I guess the first question that I want to ask the panel is Joe Thomas being enshrined. How does it feel to finally have somebody as a Brown go back into the Hall of Fame in over, what was it, 30, 40 years? What were your guys' thoughts as Adam freezes again?
So, I mean, my thoughts are just that. I mean, growing up and being a Browns fan, obviously I was in junior high when Joe Thomas was drafted, maybe even the very end of elementary school. And just watching growing up, the Browns obviously were not a great football team by any means. Very struggled, but we had someone that no matter what was going on, Joe Thomas was always on the football field, playing injured. He was always there. He always embodied the city of Cleveland, and he was one of us. And at the end of his career, what always sticks out to me is the fact he could have gone to the Denver Broncos. And if he would have gone to the Broncos that year, he would have ended up winning the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. But he stayed in Cleveland and ended his career at the Browns. And I think it just means everything that one player like that embodied the city the way he did and stuck with the Browns throughout his entire career, because you don't see that many times in the NFL these days. So he's truly a legend, and it was awesome getting to see everything that he meant to this city.
Yeah, it's not even just football, but look across sports at literally everything. Loyalty doesn't exist. NBA guys are signing max contracts and asking out the next year. Joe Thomas went through a decade of, for lack of a better term, misery here in Cleveland as far as on-field results. I think I heard a stat today that he is the lowest win percentage of any player ever enshrined in Canton. Now, that's not his fault per se. He's a left tackle. He can only impact the game so much. But the dude was as loyal as it comes. And, I'm not a Clevelander through and through. I moved here last year. And Joe was the first guy that came on our show, and he gave me the nickname McNuggets. And I've had a chance to interact with Joe a good amount the last year. As good as he was on the field, and as cool as he seems in person when you see him in doing media at the enshrinement ceremony, like that's all real. And I don't think that's the case with a lot of guys of his stature. Like there's nothing about Joe Thomas from his play in the field to who he is off the field that's fake. He's as nice and genuine and as kind as they come. And to see a guy who embodied Cleveland, not just on the field, but off the field, get the recognition from the rest of the country that he should have frankly had for a decade from 07 to 17 this weekend was pretty special.
I think both of you summed it up perfectly. I mean, the loyalty's the best thing ever. You don't see it in any sports, period, like Mike said. I mean, even Tom Brady has gone to a different team. Peyton Manning, those guys win Super Bowls left and right. And it's just, I mean, all of us have bad days and don't want to go to work and stuff like that. But, I mean, we don't get physically harmed. This guy's getting beat up every single day and never miss a snap. So, definitely probably one of my favorite Browns of all time, if not my favorite.
For me, Joe holds a special place in my heart. My grandfather was the one who showed me what it was like or what it meant to be a Browns fan, how to boo a Steelers fan, how to talk smack to a Steelers fan. Joe, the last draft we ever got to watch together before he got sick. So he holds a special place for me in that space, but also the fact that he would stop and talk to you if you saw him somewhere. If you saw him out in public, he would stop, he would talk. It didn't matter what was going on. All the things that he would do to give back to the local high schools and middle schools in the area surrounding Cleveland. He was just a caring guy. It was more about the city than it was just, I'm a Brown, I'm here. I'm going to play here and either until I'm forced to retire or until I can go somewhere else and win a Super Bowl, like Tyler alluded to, with him being recruited to go to Denver. So for me, Joe has always had a special place. He'll always hold a special place for multiple reasons for Browns fans. And he definitely deserves it. I think Bull made it sound best that he now weighs less than Darrelle Revis, if you've seen the two in the Hall of Fame assignment. So we got to give Joe credit there, in phenomenal shape. But sports talking it, I'll pass it to you. And he's frozen again.
I'm what? I'm moving? Am I moving on the screen?
You are now.
No?
Yeah.
I'm about to switch and go off my phone instead of this Comcast shit and see if it fixes it. Joe Thomas, one of the best tackles in the game. I mean, there's no if, and, or buts. Of course, he's just like Marino. You wanted to see him win a Super Bowl, but he didn't because they stayed dedicated to a team. And that's just something that speaks many volumes. That doesn't happen nowadays. Everyone's out chasing the dream of getting a ring instead of staying loyal into one particular team, hoping one day they go out there and they grab it and they get the ring. Joe Thomas, I mean, once, I think Mike said that he stops and was that you, Mike, that said that?
Yeah, he's an awesome guy, as genuine as it comes.
So, yeah, I feel Joe Thomas well deserved this award and everything else. I mean, look at how many sacks he let go. And then the new left tackle came in and already let go that number that year of his whole career.
Can I ask you guys a question real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
And Tyler, John, I'm not sure if you're Cleveland through and through, but I know Tyler and Evan are. When he got drafted in 2007, were you guys excited to pick him at 3? I'm looking at the list of his draft class. Like Peterson went behind him. I know Ted Ginn Jr. was in that class. Marshawn Lynch, Patrick Willis. Was Cleveland excited to draft a left tackle at 3 that year?
I'll let you guys go first.
I would say no. I mean, because especially like when like me and my friends were like, "Oh, Adrian Peterson's right there. How do you pass on Adrian Peterson?" Or of course, being a Buckeye, growing up a Buckeye, Ted Ginn's right there. How do you pass on all that speed? So it's never the sexy pick to take a left tackle. It just isn't. But the funny thing was, I remember hearing when the Browns drafted Joe Thomas, and they were just talking about him like, this guy's going to be a really good player. And it was just hilarious. He was out fishing instead of attending the draft. And that just goes back to his personality. And that's one thing I'll never forget about Joe Thomas. But I was shocked, honest, when that happened, because I was like, Adrian Peterson, like, how do you pass on this guy? Or how do you pass on arguably one of the fastest players in the entire draft? So it was definitely a surprise.
I was pumped. I've played lineman my whole life, so I was hoping, they were actually talking about taking Brady Quinn at 3, which being an Ohio State guy, I'm not a huge fan of Notre Dame. So, and I just always felt like Notre Dame never played anyone good, and I didn't want to see Brady Quinn on the team. He made it to the team later, but at 24 or whatever pick that was, but being a struggling team, the Lions always were struggling. So, a shutdown left tackle was, second most important spot on the offense behind the quarterback.
So for me, I got to go against Tyler here. I was absolutely excited. I kind of read the tea leaves because by the time that it came around for that draft, you were either on the side of drafting Joe Thomas and knowing it was Joe Thomas, or Brady Quinn or AP. For me, I was absolutely excited. I felt like that was one of the reasons that Tim Couch didn't survive here, was not having an offensive line. I recently watched a video about the Houston Texans and their expansion, and the two guys that they had picked up in an expansion draft were all-pro guys at the tail end of their career who still had a little bit left in the tank. Both of those guys got hurt. And what happened to David Carr?
Yeah.
He got destroyed.
Most quarterback ever.
Right. So for me, Joe Thomas was definitely worth it. And even and I appreciate you asking this question, because it was going to bring to the next question for me was, did you regret the pick a few years in? Because I remember the talk around Cleveland, especially the next year when we ended up taking Trent Richardson. It was all because we felt like we had missed on Adrian Peterson, and that was a pick that I never wanted, because I felt like Trent just wasn't AP, and it was never going to be close, and that's exactly what it turned out to. But to answer the question, out of the other first round Hall of Famers that are there, which would be AP and Darrelle Revis, just looking at that list, I think we made the right pick then, and I think we made the right pick now.
It's crazy when you look at the top 3 of that draft. Jamarcus Russell, maybe one of the worst first overall picks ever, then 2 Hall of Famers, Calvin Johnson and Joe Thomas, who at their respective positions, I think you can make the argument that they're the two. Joe Thomas might be the best left tackle ever. Calvin Johnson might be the best single receiver ever. Then you have Jamarcus Russell, who obviously his career went the opposite direction. So
I do have the question of, do you feel like he came to the right situation when it comes to Jamarcus Russell? But that's another conversation for another day. And I got to take a shot at you here. Calvin Johnson is the second greatest receiver all time. Me personally, my list would have to have Randy Moss number 1 there, because he's the prototype for all big receivers in my mind.
Yeah,
but Megatron definitely.
I was just saying you can make the argument whether you
Absolutely.
think it's him, Randy Moss, Jerry Rice. They're at least in the conversation, and then Jamarcus Russell is in a different conversation. But
so, with that being said, guys, do we want to tackle off-season moves next, or do we want to go straight into what's been going on in camp?
Whatever.
Either one.
So I'll be safe and go here. I think we should talk about off-season moves. Each guy here has an opportunity to pick one guy or one move that happened in the previous offseason that they were shocked by, didn't like, or absolutely loved? And John, I'll let you go first.
Put on the spot here. I would say I don't even know his name. The guy from Minnesota is probably my most excited move. The DN.
Is it Darius Smith or Dalvin Tomlinson?
Smith, the one we got late for trade. Yeah, that's what I'm most excited for. A little help for Miles and see if they can get some more pressure on the quarterback. As everyone here probably knows, last year our second leading sack guy was like 3 sacks, I believe.
Yeah, it was 3 sacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need a little more pressure. And as I stated earlier, I'm all about the line. So offensive and defensive. More offense, but I like defensive line too. So that's one I'm most excited for, and see how it works out. And it's a contract year, so he's going to want to get paid.
Absolutely. Tyler.
Oh, for me, this is very easy. The Browns going out and getting Elijah Moore. I was a huge Elijah Moore fan when he was coming out of the draft. I wanted the Browns to draft him, and I feel like if the Jets didn't snag him at the beginning of the second round, the Browns would have ended up getting him. But the fact that Andrew Berry gave up only a second-round pick, he turned that second-round pick into Elijah Moore, and basically getting that third-round pick from the Jets, Cedric Tillman. Getting Elijah Moore is a no-brainer. You can already see what he's bringing to the offense. Play inside, play outside, but they're lining him up in the backfield. He's going to play some snaps out of the backfield, running routes. I mean, we saw it today in camp. Touchdown pass from Deshaun Watson coming out of the backfield. There's just so much Elijah Moore can bring to this offense, and he's the type of flexible receiver that this team really needs. He brings a lot of speed that this team really needs. It was just an absolute no-brainer for me because you got a guy that's going to instantly be an impact player for your offense. And I've said this on our show before, and I'll reiterate it here. I really do think Elijah Moore, not necessarily going to lead the team in yards, but he's going to lead the team in receptions this year. He's going to be Deshaun Watson's favorite target.
Yeah, before I give you mine, I want to say one thing on Elijah Moore. If he's not awesome this year, I'm just going to give up believing in anything I ever hear in the preseason again. Because I genuinely think he's going to be really good. But the way we, including myself on our show, like the way we take these certain videos and we get excited about a guy, I feel like we have hyped his expectations up to a Calvin Johnson-esque season or fail. And it's not fair to Elijah Moore. Like the guy has 900 yards in 2 seasons. I loved him coming out of Ole Miss too, Tyler. Like I thought the Jets, I was like, how did he fall to the second round? I hate the Jets, by the way. I hate the Jets. So when they got him, I was like, God, come on. Like, any team to swoop him up. But after seeing all the hype he's gotten this preseason, if he's not really good, I'm going to be so hurt. And I'm just going to – it'll be the official mark of Mike Lucas no longer believes anything he sees in preseason – or in training camp, excuse me, because I've been so not misled, but like hoodwinked, fugazi by the Elijah Moore. But with that being said, I do think he will be really good, and I just hope for my sanity that he is. The move I'll go with, though, is Jim Schwartz, and I don't know if that's kind of cheating the answer here, Evan, but I think of all the individual pieces that Andrew Berry brought together this year, I think the Browns knocked the offseason out of the park. They had question marks at a couple different positions outside of linebacker. I think Andrew Berry did a phenomenal job addressing each of those positions. But I think Jim Schwartz is kind of the glue to the puzzle here, especially on the defensive side of the ball, where they were, frankly, pretty terrible in a couple of different categories last year, especially stopping the run. So you bring in Tomlinson, you draft Siaki Ika, you sign guys like Tristan Hill, Mo Hurst in the middle. And those all on paper look good. But look at Jim Schwartz's history. Everywhere he's gone, in his first season, the defense has jumped at least 10 spots in points allowed per game and in opponents' rushing yards per game. I don't know how he does it. He's a defensive line, especially defensive tackle, magician, savant. We say quarterback whisperer. Well, he's a run-stopping defensive tackle whisperer. And the fact that they got in guys who are now capable of plugging the middle and stopping the run, they have talent in the secondary, and the linebackers aren't going to be taking on offensive guards and centers 4 yards off the line of scrimmage and having to shed tackles or shed blockers and make tackles at their undersized stature. I think Jim Schwartz and the mentality he brings in, the difference between him and Joe Woods, is the single biggest gap in talent or execution this year, as far as where it was last year to where it will be this year. So my biggest offseason move for the Browns comes in the coaching side, and that was the signing of Jim Schwartz to be the defensive coordinator.
So you guys took all of my answers that I had written down in reverse order. So I'm going to piggyback here with a little bit of everything here. Elijah Moore, I think the reason he has so much hype is the last time we really had a guy who came in here and delivered what you heard about him before you saw anything was Josh Gordon. Because even though Josh came in this supplemental draft, a lot of people felt like whoever took him was getting a steal. If I'm not mistaken, that there were 20 to 25 teams that were interested in him in the supplemental draft when he declared for that. So I think that's why Elijah Moore is getting a lot of hype. I think also because you have to tie in the fact that he's dropping out a lot of videos with him and Deshaun doing a lot of off-season work, getting chemistry together. So I think that's helping out a lot too. But I definitely agree in the sense of if it doesn't work out, I'm done with preseason hype, even though that's why we're all here.
Exactly.
For me, I liked the Zadarius Smith ad. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm not happy that we have him, but I was kind of comfortable knowing that we had Coach Schwartz and the guys that we did have before bringing him in here, because I look at what he has done in Philly and what he has done in Tennessee and how those defenses jumped. If you look back at a team that had a stacked edge room, instead of a D-line room, we'll just say a stacked edge room, you can go back to the Giants where they had Michael Strahan, Osi Umenyiora, Justin Tuck, and the list kept going. And you look at guys here, there was a lot of talk even last year before Joe Woods was let go about putting Alex Wright over one of the guards and the things that you would see from him. And then you have a guy like Obo, who came from Houston, who had a lot of upswing. It was a potential signing. There were some people who were skeptical of what they saw with him in LA with the Rams, and then he goes and has a great second half of the season, and then he comes here on another prove-it deal with real pass rush help, with Myles Garrett, and then you add a Zadarius Smith in this wide nine style defense up front that will really help, I think, the best part of our defense, which is our secondary. Now, with all that being said, I'll take the low swing here and take Juan Thornhill as my surprise and my joyful pick of the offseason. I still want to see that pay-per-view fight between him and Bull. We don't know if we're going to get there, but I definitely want to see that.
Him and Bull are cool, by the way. Don't worry. There's no actual beef. They're all good.
Good. That's good to hear. But Juan Thornhill is exactly what I felt this defense needed. Especially for just the secondary. I really love Anthony Walker and what he brought when he first got here, and I think that is exactly what Juan Thornhill can do for a guy like Grant Delpit. I think that knowing that he's able to play the center of the field, it just seems like he pops up in the right place. He's always comes up with a crucial interception when he was with Kansas City, whether he had Honey Badger next to him or whoever else. Especially when that secondary always came into question as Kansas City was building their dynasty. So we all picked something that really made us happy here for the Browns offseason, Adam. So I would like you to start us off on the next part of this question. What is the one thing that the Browns did in the offseason that you did not like?
That I did not like?
Right.
I don't know, Evan. I just I brought you guys all on to tell me what I'm missing. I didn't I guess I didn't do my homework on that question.
Sorry there, but I think you know what?
I guess I just threw myself under the bus.
Right. So I guess I'll go first. I'll go first with this one, and Mike, I'll have you go second, and we'll kind of go in reverse order here. not answering, not having a better answer at the deep threat, stretch the field wide receiver. I know 2020 hindsight with Marquise Goodwin and his health. Unfortunately, having blood clots, I'm glad that was something that was caught and he wasn't on the field, and it could have been worse. But for me, I felt like there were other ways to make a move. I kind of expect the Holy Grail out of Andrew Berry, because every offseason we're always wondering as Browns fans and as podcasters, and we're always wondering, what are they going to do? We have so many holes, and then boom, he fills them. I feel like Anthony Schwartz, he needs a year in the USFL. He needs a year in the XFL to really get his confidence back, because one day you'll see him catching wide open passes, and then the next day he's dropping something. I'm still worried with what's going on with Jakeem Grant coming off an Achilles injury. We saw Grant Delpit do well, but receivers, I feel like that's a little bit different. We really don't hear many wide receivers come back from that, along with it being anybody. So that would be my biggest concern. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I think there's two. I'll chime in at the end if no one else takes the other one. But I was all on board the DeAndre Hopkins train. And I know receivers not a massive need for this team. I think the receiving room as currently constructed is solid. I think it's better than average, but not great. But when you look at the AFC top to bottom, the whole conference is loaded. There are, in my opinion, 10 or 11 teams, depending on the day and how I feel about a certain team, that I think could win 10 games in the AFC this year. And the difference in going 9-8, 10-7, 11-6 is going to be making the playoffs, or us being pissed off in the offseason that, hey, we had a really talented team and didn't make it. And when I look at the Browns receiver room, DPJ is solid. I think he's fine, but I think DeAndre Hopkins is better. And if you could have upgraded that third possession receiver from DPJ to DeAndre Hopkins, that was at minimum, in my mind, at least one win better, maybe two. And that one win could have been the difference between, like I said, being in fourth place at 10-7 or in the playoffs at 11-6 or whatever the record is, one game. So I'm not upset. I get why Andrew Berry didn't want to spend the money. But to me, this is a make or break year. This is all in. Deshaun Watson is in the second year now of this massive contract. Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, Amari Cooper, Wyatt Teller, Joel Bitonio, they're not getting younger. They're not getting cheaper. And this was the year, in my opinion, that they had enough cap space with everything else to go make a move like that, go all in. And they did it at certain positions. They didn't do it at receiver. And because of that, that's my one main criticism of how Andrew Berry addressed this offseason. I don't think they needed Hopkins, but I feel a lot better about that receiver room with a second proven guy like a DeAndre Hopkins than I do at the moment, basing their 2 and 3 receivers on Elijah Moore and DPJ, who should be good, but I just don't think they're Hopkins.
I think the biggest thing with that, Mike, kind of just going off of that, because that was a huge topic that we discussed too. A big part of it is if you look at the Browns right now going into 2024, and again, you should focus on the now, but Andrew Berry also has to look at the future. If you look at the Browns cap situation for 2024, they're $54 million over the cap.
It's not good.
And that's where it becomes difficult, because I was not against DeAndre Hopkins at all. I agree. I do think it's a move they should have made, and I was hoping they could have gotten him for around $10 million, because I think at that point it makes so much sense. But when you get into what the Titans gave up, that becomes dicey, because you have a tough decision you got to make on Amari Cooper after this year. Mm-hmm. Are you going to give Amari Cooper $20 million? You're going to are you going to extend him? Are you going to let him walk? There's a lot of questions Andrew Berry's got to determine with this roster in the offseason. What are they going to do with Wyatt Teller? A lot of people think he's going to end up being a cap casualty, either cut or traded. They're going to have some other tough decisions they're going to have to make. Are they going to keep Ethan Posick after this year? Because they can easily get out of that contract. And you saw how Luke Whippler, the center from Ohio State, 6th-round pick, performed against the Jets. If he continues to look good in the preseason, he's really cheap. Could he be the future center? Andrew Berry has so much to look at. I love Hopkins, but then that becomes a tougher question. He's older than Amari Cooper. He probably then you look at he's going to be around 33 next year. He got a multi-year deal from the Titans. Would Andrew Berry have been comfortable with that? That's something we don't know. And
that's real quick, guys. That's all fair. Like I totally get that. And that's why I'm not ripping Andrew Berry for not making the move. Like, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But the AFC is so damn good. Look at the list of quarterbacks in the AFC. Like, there's 2 competent quarterbacks in the NFC and like 13 guys that you take and you'd be happy with. Like, if they don't make the playoffs this year, they could be good and miss the playoffs. And then we're asking a totally different question. And I just would feel more confident. So, like, I'm not ripping Barry. I told you what you're saying is all right. Like, I actually don't disagree with the words you said. I think DeAndre Hopkins is worth a win, and that win could be the difference of us looking at this season being like, damn, the Browns are really good, or holy, you know what? We missed the playoffs with a really good roster. So, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Basically. And I'll go into now the area that is the biggest concern for me, or the thing that I really wish the Browns would have done this offseason. They still did not address the defensive tackle position enough. And the reason I say this, the Browns clearly need another defensive tackle. If Jordan Elliott is playing in a preseason Hall of Fame game, and he right now is the guy that's starting next to Dalvin Tomlinson in camp, that's a problem, because clearly they don't believe he's a starter. That's what that tells me. You brought in Dalvin Tomlinson. I love that addition, no doubt. Outside of that, if Dalvin Tomlinson gets hurt, we're back to square one that we were in 2022. We're absolutely screwed, regardless of how great of a defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz is, and he's one of the top in the NFL and has proven that. Without Dalvin Tomlinson, you got Jordan Elliott, Siaki Ika, Tommy Togiai, Maurice Hurst. Those are your defensive tackles. You need to go out. You need to seal the deal for Shelby Harris or a guy I love, Matt Ioannidis, who can play defensive tackle, play defensive end, and can get after the quarterback. Very solid player that I haven't heard a single word about during this entire time in free agency, and it's been really weird. I hope the guy is like okay, or maybe he's in the Bahamas drinking a martini. I don't know. But they need to go out and add another veteran defensive tackle. And honestly, I wouldn't even be mad if they added 2 veteran defensive tackles, because it sounds like Maurice Hurst might not make the roster. Tristan Hill's been hurt, the other guy they brought in. Tommy Togiai, I love former Buckeyes, but he has not shown us outside of that batted ball in the Hall of Fame game anything since he's been in the NFL. And then Jordan Elliott continues to underperform where he was drafted, and we hoped he would take that next step. So outside of Dalvin Tomlinson, that's all you got. And then you got a rookie in Siaki Ika. It was nice to see him make a play. But what's encouraging about him is he can take on multiple blockers and give room for linebackers to actually come up and make plays, eat blocks. That's encouraging. But outside of Dalvin Tomlinson, that's the one proven defensive tackle the Browns have on the roster that has shown that he can be a contributor in the NFL. The other guys on the roster are complete unknowns. So that's the biggest thing for me from this offseason.
John, before you go, I have to ask this question because they struck a very hot topic for me. Is this the one weakness for this front office and head coach, for this front office and coaching staff that we have? If you look at what we have around us, it doesn't seem like we have an issue drafting and developing corners or somebody in the secondary. It seems like we can find late guys late when it comes to running back or when it comes to the offensive line. And we're so when it comes to receiver. I think the biggest issue for us is that the guys we draft and put so much hope in when it comes to receiver are late round guys, and we had so many other needs. I feel like if we were drafting with a first round pick this past draft, I feel like a receiver would have been taken off the board. But if you look at the defensive line and you're looking at Jordan Elliott, 3rd round pick, Tommy Togiai, 4th round pick, Perion Winfrey, 4th round pick, Siaki Ika, 3rd round pick, Maurice Hurst and Tristan Hill, one was a 1st round pick, one was, I believe, a 2nd round pick, but they never produced with anything. Do you feel like that is the one place that we really struggle? Because the only other 2 guys that I can really feel like that we brought in on the defensive line since Stefanski has been here has been Malik McDowell and Sheldon Richardson.
It's a great question, and I think I'd say yes and I'd say no. I say yes, and I think they have not really identified good fits for the scheme they're running. Unfortunately, the Perion Winfrey situation, we didn't get long enough to really be able to judge that properly. Wish him all the best, though. Hope he's able to get his career back on track. But I also look at this. You mentioned when they drafted those guys. The earliest they've taken a D tackle is the 3rd round. The odds that they're going to hit normally on a 3rd, 4th round defensive tackle, it's slim if you can hit on two or 3 out of your 7 picks. I mean, it just doesn't happen very often in the NFL that consistently. So I would say, based off the draft, where they're drafting these guys too, if the Browns are drafting a defensive tackle in the 1st round, they're not panning out, or in the 2nd round, it's not panning out, that's a little bit more worrisome. When you get in the later rounds, there's no really guarantee with any draft pick, truly. But when you're getting to those later rounds, it's not a guarantee. And so I think that plays into it too. I mean, everyone wants to compare, especially the wide receiver portion of this, to Cincinnati. Well, look at where Cincinnati has spent those draft picks at wide receiver. They took Jamar Chase in the top 5. They took T. Higgins. Basically, he was the first pick in the 2nd round. So basically, he's a late 1st rounder. And Tyler Boyd, I believe, was a 2nd round pick when they took him. They've invested high on the wide receiver position. The Browns have not invested high at the defensive tackle position. This is the first year under Andrew Berry they've actually spent considerable money at the position. So I think that they've identified that is a weakness, and that's why you saw them draft Siaki Ika where they did, and that's why they went out and spent money on Dalvin Tomlinson. So it has been a weakness for them. I do agree, identifying the right fits for their scheme, but also I think that has to do with where they're drafting these guys too.
Absolutely. So, John, go ahead.
Well, you guys stole my thunder, but I guess I'll go to the next level behind it, because obviously, when we talk D tackles, we're talking about stopping the run, and then, so I'm worried about all the inside linebackers coming back from, ACL injuries and stuff like that. So I don't know if the Browns. I don't know. I'm just nervous about them coming back from injuries, both Taki and
JOK.
Anthony Walker Jr. and
Anthony
JOK.
Walker. Yeah. As you can tell, I'm not great with names. I just know the players. So, yeah, just and JOK. I mean, are they going to is Schwartz going to put him in a position to make plays? I feel like they did that the first year he was here. Then last year, he kind of got lost in the shuffle. And so I guess the whole linebacking unit just makes me a little nervous.
So I kind of want to jump at that, because I think Jim Schwartz is the right guy for this. If you look at what he did in Philadelphia and Tennessee with Zach Cunningham, but I bring up Philadelphia first because they drafted Nakobe Dean, who's considered to be a undersized middle linebacker. They ran him off the edge when they were in blitz situations. They would use him to overload one side or another. I feel like that's something that we can really use JOK at. I feel like there have been plenty of moments since he's been here where in a key rush where he's our extra blitzer and it's not expected, he gets home. I think we saw something with Sione Takitaki last year being at middle linebacker. He kind of reminded me of Joe Schobert. For those of you who remember, when we drafted him, he was a late round draft pick as well. Ended up playing at the will spot, got moved over, and became a Pro Bowler, and was somebody that was very sustainable in that system that we had. And I feel like those two things can really carry over. The question for me is what happens behind them and what happens with injuries, because we look at guys like Jacob Phillips hasn't panned out. Tony Fields, do we really think he can have a sustainable season? Or a consistent season, rather. So I do share some concerns, but the guys at the top of the depth chart, I think with the new defensive coordinator that we have, I think they'll be put in the right spots, and we won't have to worry about them. So with that being said, we only got Mike here for another 15 minutes. So we kind of covered preseason moves and our concerns in that quick little scenario there. So, Mike, I'll give you 15 minutes to kind of steer the show wherever you want to take it.
I mean, 15 minutes is a long time here. I'll start with this in training camp. The Browns lost 2 defensive ends in the last day or two to injuries, and injuries are starting to kind of pile up. It's early. None of them seem too serious. No one's out for the season. But we did a segment on our show the other day of what position groups on the Browns we were the most confident in. And I had defensive ends number 1. And I'm not changing that because Alex Wright and Isaiah Thomas are banged up. But they went from having 6 guys I really like down to 4 guys I really like. And now we're going to be counting on rookie Isaiah McGuire to be at
Charles
least at this
Wiley?
stage of the season, a consistent contributor in that defensive end rotation behind Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, and Obo. And Tyler, I'll ask you this, and I'm not sure who else wants to chime in, but are you confident in the depth of this defensive end group now, or do you think they got to go out? And I know you mentioned Matt Ioannidis. He's a guy I think would be a nice fit as well. I mean, I can't believe he hasn't signed yet. So he must just told teams like, I have no interest in coming to training camp. If you want me, I'll show up the day before week 1. But are you confident in that group? Because I still am, but it's waning quickly with the injuries.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I was so excited for this defensive end group coming into this year. There's so much talent that they've added to the position. But now I'm a little hesitant because now with Alex Wright and Isaiah Thomas, it says Mary Kay Cabot said it might go into the regular season. Okay. That's a little worrisome. I didn't even.
Sorry. It said multiple weeks, whatever that means.
And then I know she mentioned, she said, Stefanski mentioned it could go into the regular season. So my first thought is Isaiah Thomas, I didn't know if he was making the roster just because, again, it's going to be a long haul for him to try and make the roster. But Alex Wright looked pretty good against the Jets. Mm-hmm. So now you lose those 2 guys. So right now your healthy defensive ends are Myles, Zadarius Smith, Ogbo, and then Isaiah McGuire and UDFA addition, Lonnie Phelps. That's all you have right now.
What about Charles Wiley? You guys signed him today.
Charles Wiley, I don't know if I put him more at linebacker or D. I guess I would say a little bit more of linebacker because he can play both, but I just didn't include him at
if we're counting on Charles Wiley in the season, we have bigger issues. So
right,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was just wondering. I was just wondering. It seems like the big topic that I read all day today, and I'm like, okay, why? So I was just wondering if you guys heard something different that I didn't. I mean, you guys are on this team. I'm not. So that's why I was wondering. I was like, well, what are they making a big deal about him for?
They're making a big deal because the guys got hurt.
You guys just lost Wright and Thomas, but what is the big deal about this guy?
And because they brought him in for depth, and now basically because all of a sudden we hear that Isaiah Thomas and Alex Wright are hurt, and we're signing this guy. That's kind of why they're making a big deal about it, because clearly the injuries are not severe, but they're enough for them to sign somebody, essentially.
Especially after us going and looking at Shelby after our first preseason game. So to not bring in a defensive tackle when that's a huge question, then losing 2 guys on the second week of practice, to then bring in another defensive end. But go ahead, Tyler.
I would say, going back to what you were asking, Mike, there are some guys again, they're older guys, but it would make me a little bit more confident. I mean, Robert Quinn is still available. You don't need these guys to give you 10 sacks. You need these guys to be rotational guys that can give you 3 to 5 sacks. And if they do, then that's a good free agent signing for the Browns. I know they've had previous interest in Akeem Hicks. He's a guy that's played a little defensive tackle, can also play at the end as well. I think they want someone with that type of flexibility. That way it's not just specifically a defensive end. We've seen that with some of the signings that they've made. But I keep going back to Ioannidis because he just fits everything the Browns need. He's still 29 years old, which is just remarkable that he is still 29. But Trey Flowers comes to mind. None of these guys are going to break the bank. I mean, I don't know really what they're waiting for. I mean, maybe what they could be ideally waiting for is what we're all waiting for, is that last preseason game, and then 900 players get released at the same time for them to go out and add somebody. But I would feel a little bit more confident if they would add anybody at this point, because let's say now on Friday against Washington, we don't want to think like this, but let's say Lonnie Phelps even gets injured, the UDFA. Okay, now what? You got Wiley, you got Zadarius, you got Myles, and then you have Isaiah McGuire. Like, you got to bring somebody in at that point. But what it looks like to me is that the Browns are more content working out these XFL guys, these USFL guys, and giving them a shot in the preseason as opposed to signing like a veteran defensive end. It also sounds like Shelby Harris, by all accounts, has other options for one, and he's not ready to make a decision. So that could be part of it too.
Absolutely. I will answer this and say that I am kind of worried because I alluded to it earlier when we were talking about the things we were most excited for. And I brought up the NASCAR package. Now, I will say that I didn't expect I actually expected Isaiah Thomas to go to practice squad, if not being outright cut, because of the pick of Isaiah McGuire. But with both of them having injuries that are going to probably carry them on this roster into the regular season, and with that being said, into the regular season could be to week 4. That'll be what? 7 weeks almost that you really haven't been able to practice due to an injury. Can we really rely on that? So I will have some concern, but it doesn't outweigh the other things that I was worried about.
That's fair. Eventually, it's just a number. Eventually, it's a numbers game, and they still have 3 preseason games, and it's just you felt really good because you like 6 or 7 guys, and it's just down to 4 or 5 now, and you hope you could stay at that number comfortably. But football is a violent sport, man. That's a violent position, and one of the injuries happened in a practice, so it's not even in true game situations where guys get hurt. It could be, non-contact. So, fingers crossed. One more thing I want to bring up, Evan, before I got to dip. When you see Deshaun Watson throw the football in these videos, there's something special about the way a football comes out of it. Like when Steph Curry shoots a jump shot, it looks different. We could all go shoot a jump shot. Not all jump shots are created equal. When Deshaun Watson throws it, and we got the Browns team cameras there with 4K, 5K, slow motion, you see the spiral. Have you guys ever seen, from a Cleveland perspective, a quarterback where the ball just explodes out of his hand like that? Or is this something completely new to the Cleveland fan base, at least in the last 24 years since they moved back here? I have to imagine it's new, right? It has to be brand new.
Other than Tim Couch before he got destroyed, no.
I mean, Baker might have displayed a couple moments, but it's nothing like Deshaun Watson. I said on Twitter a couple weeks ago, and I don't think it's outrageous. Deshaun Watson, from a talent perspective, because I never got to see Bernie play. I wasn't alive. I didn't get to see Brian Sipe. I didn't get to see Otto Graham, clearly, or else I probably wouldn't be here right now. The reality is Deshaun Watson is more than likely the most talented quarterback the Browns ever had. From just a talent perspective, with everything he brings to the table, his ability to process, his ability as a mobile quarterback, he brings that it factor. He brings that energy around him. Like, okay, Baker brought energy around him. Like, there's no doubt. He wake up feeling dangerous. Got everyone pumped up. Deshaun Watson also has a quiet confidence about him, though, too. And you need to have that. I mean, when you're a former national championship quarterback, you have that confidence to you. And I also think he brings that swagger to the position, too, that we need. That's something Cleveland has not had. We have not had a guy that can just single-handedly win us football games, and we're going to see that this year. I mean, we even saw a little bit of a flash of it against Washington last year. Again, we didn't see a lot of it last year. There were a lot of circumstances why. This year, we're going to see a guy that can carry us to actual wins, and it not have to be because Nick Chubb gets 25 carries that guarantees a Browns win. It's going to be because Deshaun Watson led us to that victory. And so I have personally, since I've seen a quarterback like Deshaun Watson that the Browns have had, nope, not even close.
Nah, I haven't really seen it either. But I never also saw one-handed catches on the sidelines and then never applied to much in games with Odell. So I would like to see it in the games with live bullets and stuff. And I'm getting people mad now. But I mean, practice is fun, but yeah, I guess hopefully maybe I'm just too scarred from all the years, but I would like to see it week 1 against Mr. Burrow.
No, listen, it's fair. It's fair. And I think a big part of it too, Deshaun Watson, like, this is a great topic of conversation. Mike, I'm not sure if you guys have had this topic of conversation because unfortunately when you guys are on, I'm working during the day, answering phone calls, so I don't get to listen as much as I want. But a huge topic right now, how do you weigh playing your starters versus the injury risk this preseason? I think Deshaun Watson needs to play, whether that be for a quarter on Friday. I think for the total of the preseason, he needs to play at least a half, at least a quarter in game 2, in game 4, because he's not going to play against Philadelphia because of the inter-squad scrimmage they're going to have against them. I think some of these guys have to get reps because you're learning a brand new offense, new scheme for a lot of these guys. You're also under a new defensive coordinator. I don't think Miles needs to. I don't think Za'Darius, Chubb, even Amari Cooper. But guys like Deshaun Watson, he's got to be out there. He's got to get some reps. He's still got to knock some of that rust off. I mean, he even said it could still take a little while because the guy missed nearly 2 years of football. Patrick Mahomes misses 2 years of football. He's not going to go out throwing passes behind his back, no-look passes. It's just not going to happen.
We've touched on it. We haven't gotten the full way into it. We'll do that probably Thursday. When people say Watson has to prove it again, it's not because the 6 games last year. It's because of the totality of 2 seasons. He's played 6 games in 2 years now, and he didn't look great in those 6 games. So when people are like, Deshaun has to prove it before I can put him back in that top tier, I think that's kind of fair. Like, I expect him to get back there, but just because – it's not just because of 6 games. It's because he didn't play the entire season before that. And I think it's unfair to wake up – or not wake up – to expect anyone who played 23% of games in a 2-year stretch to come back and just get right back into it. I think it might take Watson a game or two. As far as the preseason stuff goes, I am so terrified of losing Deshaun Watson that I agree he has to play some. If he looks good on the first drive and he comes back and tells Kevin Stefanski, "Hey, Kevin, I'm good," get him out. If he goes down,
I'm good with that.
He goes down, like whatever he needs to feel good, Deshaun, you do what you have to do. If that's one play or you say you don't need it, I feel better because you don't know what's going to happen. This live hits. It's not red jersey on quarterbacks, which I think in preseason it should be, frankly. I know I don't know if we can curse on this podcast, but that's like the biggest
in
the world move. But it's the biggest pussy move in the world, let's be honest. But like that's how important these quarterbacks are to the future of these teams. And there's nothing worse than losing your star franchise quarterback, the key cog, the only guy you can't lose without completely changing the projection of your season. That losing him in preseason, I just think is like the most devastating gut punch in the entire world. So whatever Deshaun says he needs, I'm good with that. If that's one drive, cool. If he says I need 3 quarters, I'm praying to God and Muhammad and Allah and every God up there that he's going to come out safely. But I err on the side of caution probably way too much when it comes to preseason and what these guys need. But I thought
Watson was getting better towards the end of the season. Like he was just getting his feet wet again, and I thought he was getting better. But I'm an outside perspective, obviously. But I felt like he was getting better.
I agree with that, Adam, but I totally disagree with everything the two of them just said. I absolutely
disagree. About the preseason, absolutely.
Yes, I have a rant. It's an old man rant. I say it every year. When you have a quarterback or a star player that's been getting hurt and it's not the same injury, keep playing. When we were kids and we all played basketball, we played football, we fell on the ground, we scraped our knee, we cried to our mom, we got a Band-Aid, and guess what? We went back and played. When you played in Pee Wee ball, you got hit, you got cracked, and guess what? You got up and you played. When you got hurt, guess what? Put some water on it, put some ice on it. 2 weeks later, you out there and played. He hasn't been on the field
like right away.
He hasn't been on the field. And the last time we saw a quarterback take this kind of time off was Mike Vick. And what happened in his first 2 years in the preseason? He played. And it showed when he finally got that rhythm, he played. And here's the other thing that they have admitted, and players have admitted after they have retired out in Philly, that guys are saying there is an issue here in this previous offseason, is how to block for a mobile quarterback, because we haven't had one. You telling me we can have an inter squad practice and then he come out and play one game where he at least plays a half and you keep your starters out there for the entire half? I understand that injuries happen and they could throw away a season. But if it don't, guess what? We won't be talking about it. And you get your line a chance and you get your quarterback a real chance to be in the flow of everything. It's got to be something, because if we're going to sit here and say we were worried about injuries, he should have never played against the Texans, because the way he looked was way worse than what he'll look if he does this.
But at least that was a real game, Evan. Like this is meaningless. Meaningless in the sense it doesn't count to their road to the Super Bowl.
If Jacoby played against Houston, would we have won?
You mean last year when Deshaun played and they still won?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, still would have won. Yeah.
Would they have looked phenomenally better?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Deshaun played very poor against Houston.
As long as Tony Fields is taking interceptions to the house, we would have won.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sixes, whatever that was.
Right, but we weren't sitting here saying he didn't have a full week of practice. He didn't have all this time. He didn't all this extra stuff. And now we're talking about him having at least 2 quarters, just 2. I'm not asking for 3. I'm not asking for him to go out and throw 250, 3 touchdowns and run for 1. I'm just saying 2 quarters of protected, because we know this for sure when it comes to the preseason. Right, but here's the thing we know about the preseason. Coaches talk to each other, and they can have a game plan to say, hey, look, we're going to keep him out here. This is what our plan is. We're not going to tell you what the plays are, but we just want to see what the rhythm is like, make sure that he's ready, make sure that he's confident, and go from there. Because if we're worried about injuries for everybody, if you're a starter or you got a good contract on this team, by that logic, you shouldn't be playing. Period.
Yeah. This is one thing we're probably never going to agree on, Evan. But just like you said, you disagree with everything I said. I disagree with literally everything you just said right there. That's why it's probably a great topic. I don't think there's anything myself, Tyler, John, Adam can say that would change your mind. And I don't think there's anything on the flip side that is going to change mine. It's one of the ones kind of like plant your flag. There is a line drawn in the sand. And I respect people on that side. I get you do need reps, but I also get there are guys out there who are trying to make a roster.
Yeah.
And it looks good when you're trying to make a roster as an unknown, no-name guy, taking Deshaun's head off on a play where it's not even wrong. I get why that player be trying to do it. So I just side in the error on the side of caution here, and this is one of the ones that we can have a.
Is that because you feel like you have a good quarterback finally?
I didn't want Jacoby to play last year either, because if he goes out and then we have Josh Dobbs, like unless you had a Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes quarterback room, if those are my 2 quarterbacks, I'm good. Patrick Mahomes can play all the preseason he wants, because if he goes down, I got Joe Burrow.
It's a hell of a fantasy team.
That's what I'm saying. If you got a fantasy football team quarterback room, but if you don't, like, if you're not a rookie quarterback, I don't want to see you in preseason. That's kind of my like. Tyler, I don't know if you feel the same way, John. I'm not sure how you feel. I gotta run in a sec, but unless you're a rookie, like I'm so freaking scared of my guy getting hurt, and that's once
I'm right
again
there with you.
Maybe that makes me the pussy here. I don't know, but like,
it doesn't. I get it.
If you
don't make
the season's over before it starts, so
listen, Deshaun Watson takes the first snap Friday night. I'm gonna be nervous. Not gonna lie. Like, you just never know. We saw Nick Harris get hurt on the opening drive last year, and Deshaun Watson's first snaps back in 2 years. Like, so yeah, I'm gonna be a little nervous, and that's the reason I don't want Nick Chubb or Myles Garrett anywhere near the football field this preseason. Keep those guys in bubble wrap.
Yeah. So if he tears his ACL in week 3 of the preseason versus tearing his ACL in week 1, you feel better that it happened in week 1?
Say it again.
You're never going to feel better with your quarterback tearing his ACL.
I'm saying with anybody, with any star player, do you feel better if he got hurt in the preseason or if he got hurt in week 1? An injury is an injury, man.
Correct.
I mean, you don't ever feel good, but at least he got hurt in a game that matters in terms of your record.
Agreed. That's where I'm at.
Okay, so we're going to have to agree to disagree. And before Mike goes ahead and gets out of here, we definitely want to say thank you, give you your flowers for coming and joining us tonight, especially after coming back from a long trip to go see some family. But what we like to do when guys leave the show, whether it's the end of the show or they got to leave early, we give them an opportunity to shout out their social medias or where they can be found if fans want to check out some more of your work.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. This was a blast. If you want to check me out on Twitter, it is at Mike Lucas TV, spelled exactly how you would think. And then if you don't, check out the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. We're on Monday through Friday, 11 to 1 p.m., 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on YouTube. Just search Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. It is myself, Adam the Bull, Jay Crawford, G. Bush, Tyvis Powell. Tomorrow we got Tom Hamilton and Aditi Kinkabwala on. So should be a fun show. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. I promise you will either be entertained, and we get in a lot of arguments just like we did right there, and the voices are a lot louder and the mics are a lot hotter. So it is definitely an entertaining 2 hours. So I appreciate you guys. It's been a pleasure, and I will see y'all soon.
Mike, thanks for coming on, man. Sorry about my messed up computer situation.
All good, my man. All good. Have a good one,
I
guys.
just reset the router, and I'm on my phone's mobile hotspot, and it's running it better than the actual Comcast router. But we're not going to get into that conversation.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Mike.
Tyler, it looks like you got to go too, my man. So definitely want to say thank you for having us on. I want you to shout out everywhere people can find you, and we got to have you on again.
Yeah, well, first off, guys, I really appreciate it too. Anytime I can join to talk Browns, NFL, Major League Baseball, whatever you guys want to talk about, I'm always down to talk sports. So I really appreciate you guys. You guys can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me. It's right here at the bottom at T_Johnson_TJ on Twitter. Love interacting with fans on Twitter. Try and post a lot on there content-wise. But covering the Browns, talking Browns on the Faithful Dogs podcast. We are live with that show Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock on the Network 216 YouTube channel. And then I also cover Ohio State football on the Scarlet and Gray podcast. We're actually resuming that show. Normally we're going to be Monday nights at 7 o'clock on the Network 216 YouTube channel, but this Wednesday we actually have a great guest that is going to join us, Mark Culkin, who covers UFC football and is the host of Lockdown UFC podcast. He is going to talk about basically what happened with the Pac-12. So pretty excited about that. It's going to be a big show, but you guys can follow me on Twitter. You can follow all the shows that I just mentioned, but also considering following Network 216 as well. We provide Ohio sports content year round, covering Ohio State, Cleveland Browns, Cleveland Cavaliers, Cleveland Guardians. But I really appreciate you guys so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to talking with you guys again.
Absolutely. Before you get out of here, is that an NFL Blitz t-shirt?
Nick Chubb, NFL Blitz.
Oh, man. I've been looking for one of those. I got to find one. Blitz was a pastime, but I got to find one.
You DM me, and I'll send you the link. Homage.com.
All right.
That's
definitely.
one of our partners. So just let me know.
Oh, definitely will.
All right. Thanks, you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
What's up, kids?
So
that was a good little chat.
Absolutely. So yeah, I got about.
What do you guys think your record's gonna be?
I'll let John go first. I have some stuff for this.
I don't know. I don't know.
You think every team in this AFC North is going to get over 10 wins?
No.
It seems to be a Josh Cribbs question, too, the other day.
I feel like it's a tough question for me. I feel like it's going to come down to the Jets or the Browns. I feel like they're the two most talked about teams, and one of them is going to succeed and one of them is going to fail. So, but I feel like I go with 10-7. That's where I'm at. I don't have a reason for it. It's just kind of what I feel.
So I was at the Hall of Fame game. I worked the locker room for the Browns and the Jets.
How was that?
So I was one of the managers for that night, so I had to rotate guys between both. So I got to be on both sides of the locker room and got to see a lot of different stuff. I have some stories that I'm not willing to share online or on the podcast here, just because eventually I want to work with some of the guys that I have these funny stories with.
You can tell us
But
afterwards for sure.
absolutely. So for me, I got to talk to a lot of fans after the game. And the consensus number that I got for the Browns this season is 9-8, 10-7. For me, I have the Browns winning 11 games. And the only reason I have them winning 11 games, and this is not a shot at the Steelers, but they got to prove it to me this year, because I've been hearing a lot of stuff coming out of your beat reporters. I heard a lot of stuff on your show last night, and they confirmed a lot of the things that I was already worried about. I'm not even going to use Kenny Pickett's hand size as a thing. He's coming into his second year, and you either see a boom out of second year guys or a bust. And it has nothing to do with what they do in their third year, because if you look at it, Josh Allen showed a lot of potential his second year. I mean, his first year. Second year, it wasn't consistent. Third year, explosion. You look at Lamar Jackson, rookie of the year. Second year, questions. Third year, MVP. So I'm really curious of what it'll look like for Kenny Pickett on that side of the ball. Outside of the rookie receiver you had last year, who made that incredible catch in practice.
He had an incredible catch against you guys last year too.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I can't think of his name.
George
Pickens.
Yeah, George Pickens. Outside of that,
I thought you were being smart on that.
No, I'm serious. Outside of George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth, I'm not really concerned about your offense. I have questions about Najee Smith when it comes to running inside the tackles versus outside the tackles. So I have questions there. Yeah, Najee Harris. I have questions there. I think the Bengals.
Robson.
Yeah, I think the Bengals. I have more questions about the Bengals than I do the Ravens this year.
Their defense kind of went to shit, the Cincinnati Bengals.
Right, and that's where a lot of it comes from, because as we all know, when it comes to the AFC, every team bolstered their offense versus their defense. Every team. And for them to get worse on the defensive side and to lose key guys on their defense, it brings in questions. Joe Burrow has a calf injury that we know as Cleveland Browns fans can linger out throughout the season, maybe even into a second season. So to worry about him having to deal with that and getting sacked, and then that going into the playoffs, even though I have them as a playoff team, that's something you got to worry about. I feel like the Ravens are going to be a team that kind of, if their offense is what they want it to be, I really think that they're the team to beat at this point, because they have the best dual threat quarterback outside of Patrick Mahomes, and that's only because of the passing side of the ball. So as far as our division goes, I think we're going to have a great division. I think the Steelers are the biggest question mark. I think we've already discussed what it's going to be for the Browns and where our concerns are. But for me, I'm going to go with 11 wins this year, maybe even 12. But I'm definitely going to land on 11 wins.
I was in between 10-7 or 11-6 or 12-5. I even had on some of my little drafts I did. So I'm somewhere in between, the same with you guys. I think we're going to be the 10-win division, the whole thing.
So you have all teams at least winning 2 games?
It's possible.
I mean, it's possible, but I just think one of the teams is going to not do great.
Are you saying that black and gold team, John, or are you saying the?
I'm just saying one of the teams.
One of the teams. All right. I seriously think this AFC North is going to be a lot of fun to watch this year.
So, with that being said, do you think the AFC North is the class of the AFC this year, even though we can name 2 or 3 teams from every division? From every division in the AFC.
I think the AFC North is hands down the best division in football. It's not even debatable.
I don't know. I really haven't broke it down that far because like we said, we got elite quarterbacks in every division in the AFC. I mean, I know Russell Wilson had a horrible year last year, but all of a sudden, he's under Sean Payton now.
Right.
We'll see what happens there. Of course, they have Patty Mahomes. I think the Raiders are the biggest question at quarterback in that division.
Right. And then you got Geno, who had a great year last year.
And then all of a sudden, you have a quiet Justin Herbert, is he going to be a Josh Allen this year and go ballistic?
Or you could say that same thing about Trevor Lawrence, who I think that would be my pick.
I didn't even get to the South yet, but I was just on the West.
Right.
There's there's awesome quarterbacks in every division. It's scary. DeAndre Hopkins, like you said, went to Tennessee, but how good is Ryan Tannehill going to be?
That is the team. That is the one team that I feel like doesn't have a quarterback. Because you have Ryan Tannehill, you have Malik Willis, and then you go out and draft the Kentucky kid again this year.
I don't think they have any. I don't think they have any faith in Malik Willis.
That's sad because I see the potential and the talent. But
I mean, why would they give him?
But he has faith in him.
I understand why get him. He's right with what he's saying. I just feel like for Malik Willis, you have to change the offense like the Browns have done for Deshaun Watson, like the Baltimore Ravens did for Lamar Jackson, like the Colts are doing for Anthony Richardson, like the Bills did for Josh Allen. You have, just because you're a great quarterback doesn't mean everything else around you doesn't have to change. We saw that change in Denver. We saw that change in Tampa Bay. We're going to see that change in Jersey with the Jets. So I definitely agree. They're the only thing I'm trying to get at is that they're the only team that I feel like doesn't have a quarterback. And the other team that scares me in the AFC is the Dolphins. They're the only other team because if Tua can stay healthy and he gets a full season with Tyreek Hill, it's a big if, but if he gets a full season with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who's stopping him?
Can Mo start and who's the other running back? Cedric Wilson.
Yeah, right. Cedric Wilson. Who's going to stop them? Like, who's really going to stop them? Even though Jalen Ramsey isn't going to play next season, who's going to stop them?
Miami, I like their receivers. I mean, dude from Alabama who broke his leg in the national championship.
Jalen Waddle.
Waddle, yeah. I think Miami's forced to be reckoned with for sure.
If Tua stays healthy, or Skylar Thompson good enough to carry that load.
He good enough to dink it and dunk it. You can run either one of those receivers downfield as a stretch guy, run the other guy underneath, and dink and dunk all the way down the field. If he makes a guy miss, it's over with.
Leave it.
You got the dog tonight, John?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, question mark still with Aaron Rodgers. We know he's good, but he's on the Jets.
I don't think so.
But he's on the Jets.
I don't think that's a question mark. I don't think that's a question mark. I don't. I truly believe in Robert Saleh. I do. And he has Nathaniel Hackett back as his offensive coordinator, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
And you telling me that he brought over Alan Lazard, N'Keal Hartman,
Randall Cobb.
Randall Cobb ain't gonna do much, but he's there to be the leader. He's there to be the leader, huh?
Isn't Cobb hurt already?
Yeah, but he's there just to be a leader and a voice in a wide receiver room. Yeah. And then you got a decent tight end,
Garrett Wilson,
right? And you got Garrett Wilson, who already is tearing things up with Joe Flacco, and now you get him in Aaron Rodgers, and you got a Breece Hall. You got a decent offensive line, and that defense ain't going to be messed with. So I expect that defense to be even better than they were last year. It may not match statistically, but as far as
AFC East division is going to be so good, it's going to be not that good on paper.
Right.
It's not going to have the 10-win season.
Well,
the
that's
AFC
you can kind of see it. Can't you say the same thing for the North then?
And that's exactly what I was going to go to.
I mean, if everyone's being up on each other, all the teams are good. It's going to be really hard to have 4 10-win teams.
I'd rather say 400 or 500 teams, but if we're going to – I will give Adam credit there and say that the AFC North has a way better chance at doing that than the AFC East, because if you're looking at who do they have? Who are their 4 quarterbacks? You got Mac Jones, Tua,
Josh Allen, and
Josh Allen, and Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, yeah.
Both, like, there's good quarterbacks in every division, except for, like, the AFC North has Mac Jones is maybe the lowest one on that seed, just like the AFC West has an Oakland quarterback that we don't know who's going to be the starter yet.
Garoppolo.
Is he going to start?
Baker Mayfield.
Who else they got? I don't even know.
I'm calling it. Baker Mayfield's not there, but I'm calling it. He's going to end up in Oakland.
Oh.
and then today I was getting ready to leave work, and apparently Chucky is down there coaching Derek Carr in New Orleans.
I heard some about that. I didn't.
I mean, apparently, everyone thought he hated him, but apparently, like, they are super, super close.
But we can say that about anywhere that Gruden has been, though. Can't we? His relationship wasn't the greatest with those guys over in Tampa Bay. A lot of them respected him, but a lot of them felt they could have won that Super Bowl that year with Tony. And it's known that him and Brad didn't have a great relationship.
But I was just saying, like, Derek Carr and Gruden are working together right now.
I'm not surprised by it.
They were like
not at all.
Apparently, they were really good friends. That's what I was getting at.
I agree, because I'm not surprised that I agree with what you're saying. I'm just saying that I'm not surprised by it because he's never had a great rapport recorded when it comes to any quarterback that he's ever had. Can you name one?
No. Brett Favre when he was his quarterback's coach. I don't even know if that's true or not.
Oh shit!
So that's a great topic. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, sorry, I got out of the AFC conversation there real quick, but I mean, the AFC West and AFC North have that one quarterback that's questionable on the teams.
I absolutely agree. I think this is something that we can definitely save for another episode because, unfortunately, I got to get out of here because I haven't eaten dinner and I got to be up in the morning. But, yeah, no, I think
I want to hear these. I want to hear these off camera.
I'm gonna stick around for the stories, but as far as this goes, like, yeah, it's time to wrap this up. Right. But before we get out of here, I'll definitely say that I think the AFC conference is going to have the greatest quarterback season the NFL has ever seen this year, barring injury. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is going to be crazy because we've already named 2-3 divisions that got at least 3, if not 4, and 2 out of those 4, there are 6 teams that you can argue got top 5 to top 10 quarterbacks.
Yep.
So yeah, this is going to be a great season.
It's going to be a wild year.
But thank you for everybody from coming to the Lake House. You can find me on Twitter at Brogdon Evan, talking sports by the lake at XFL Football 23 for sports talking it. Do you have any other channels you want to shout out?
Driving to the Top YouTube channel. You can find everyone there. And tomorrow night we are joined by our Baltimore host, Matt and Josh. I think Josh is coming. I'm not sure. And I'm not sure who's all going to be on that show tomorrow.
I know I'm jumping in because me and him gonna have this conversation. We're gonna do this before the season starts. We have to. And then John, you got anywhere you want people to find you, or you just want to come back after the season?
You can find me every Sunday in section 312 at the Brown Stadium. And if you want to, that was supposed to be a joke. I guess it wasn't that funny, but
No, it was. I just wanted to let you finish.
Evan was trying to keep it in his head, like I got to go find John 3:12. Got it.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. If not, my Twitter is at J. What is it? At J Meets 2. I'm not a big tweeter.
It's
I
a
just come
repost now.
I just
John.
come on
It's
here as a
repost
fan.
now. It's repost. It's not retweet anymore. It's repost.
Oh, I repost stuff on the X. That's about it.
All right, man. Y'all keep doing that. We're gonna have problems with my second favorite receiver from he gonna hate me because I don't remember his name right now. Bryant. Des Bryant. Y'all keep throwing up that X-Men. Matter of fact, Des Bryant, if you ever happen to see this, bro, I love you. You number 2 for me. But we gonna have to get you on the show too, big dog. But again, thank you for everybody joining us at the Lake House. We're about to set sail, and we'll see you guys next week as we recap week 2 of the preseason, injuries, potential cuts, and things like that. We're going to show our new intro for the season one more time. Thank you for everybody for joining, and we're going to get up out of here.